Limited.
Gentlemen and Lavanya, thank you very, very much for joining us here today. Hitendra, I want to start with you, and here's a story that I want to tell people. I don't know how many of you were with us in Bombay, but for those who weren't, Future Female Forward was an idea that I was working with. As I said, through the pandemic, this was an idea that we wanted to take forward. And I happened to be on a flight, and Hitendra Dave happened to be sitting next to me, and he asked me, he said, "What are you working on?" And I said, "I have this germ of an idea. We want to put together this women's collective, and we want to create this into a pan-India movement, and we want to have all stakeholders on board." And he said, "Sign me up." And I thought that, he like people have these conversations and they forget about it, but he sent me a message and he said, "Look, you talked to me about this. So when are we doing this?" And here we are today. So ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to HSBC and Hitendra for following through on that. So Hitendra, that's what I want to talk to you about. The start of this conversation happened because we had a conversation, and today it is resulted in this big event that we're hosting here in the capital. Why do you believe it is so important for us to unlock the potential of women in the workforce?
I think, see, there's a social side to it, right? I mean, you want to do the right thing. You cannot have 50% of the population not getting equal opportunity or being deprived despite being merit, to the point that the earlier panel made. But I have, I shouldn't say just I think we felt that it is the right thing to do. Okay, I think the point has been made that this is not something good to do. This is not, you're doing some nice
CSR.
Yeah, it's not a CSR activity at all. You have a job as the CEO to make sure that your company performs to the best it can. The only way it will perform to the best it can is when you get the full quality of ideas, a better quality leadership, or a better quality workforce. So the whole piece is all, according to me, it's the right thing to do, but that's a byproduct. You have a job to deliver the goods, and having a diversified workforce helps you absolutely, and anybody who's managed men and women will realize that if it's 100% women, you will still be denied that diversity. So it's about diversity of ideas, diversity of thinking. Yeah.
It is about diversity and it is about inclusion. Lavanya, I want to come to you. You're today Vice Chairman of Nalli. It's a almost, 93-year-old organization, and there were only 2 women till 2015. Your father's secretary and you were the second woman that joined the company. Take me through your journey and how you now see this issue of being able to bring more women into the workforce, into the organization that you're a part of.
Thank you. So that was 2005, so a while ago. But yes, there were only 2 women, and clearly my father's secretary before me. And the long story short was, it was accidental. I entered it because I didn't know better, and I entered the family business. I didn't know better. I was met with sort of tolerance, and that worked out in my favor. And I think it really was a matter of perspective, because I made a lot of mistakes, learned from those mistakes, and then spent my career 7 years outside of the family business, and came back into it for my second stint. And now I think, having had that experience, some of the things that I'm doing is having a little more structured approach. There are clearly certain programs that we know work well. Mentorship is one. Women mentoring women, men mentoring women, more than mentors, sponsors. And I think also just having a very clear profile and having a very clear mandate to say that, look, this matters. We would like to have X% of our workforce women, right? Across functions, across...
Have you put a number down?
When we started, I put that number down, and I started the e-commerce business, and I think we should be at 50% now, and that's across all of the functions, right? My head of marketing is a woman, my finance controller is a woman, we've got them in the inventory and shipping and packing and across all the lines. So I think it's, sometimes you put a number onto it and then it happens.
Yeah, no, and a big round of applause to Lavanya. But you think that any of this would have happened if it was not you in the decision-making role?
it's interesting. I wonder about that, but I'm glad that it was me.
We're very glad that it is. Auguste, I want to come to you now. And, since we are talking about the economic impact of really unlocking or unleashing the potential of having more women in the workforce as employees, as consumers as well, what is the data telling us in terms of where we find ourselves, not just in India, but in the region? What are the missing links? What are the big gaps that need to be addressed?
Thank you, Shireen. Thanks for raising this economic aspect. And I enjoyed listening to the previous speaker's point on the fact that bringing women into the labor force is the right thing to do. There is an equity aspect to it. But thanks for giving me a chance to mention the economic aspect, because we're losing a lot. The world is losing out on tapping our own potential. Around the world, there are more than 150 countries that still have barriers to women's ability to work, to have assets, and to make use of their God-given talents. In the region, India is doing very well, for example, on opening access to a bank account to women, but many countries are not doing that yet in the South Asia region. And if you include India among emerging market economies, you'll see that when it comes to female labor force participation, we're not doing great. In fact, India is doing less than the other.
Why is that?
So the answer is, it is not enough to give access to bank account to women. It's good, it's a good step, but you want to bring them into the labor force. We looked at some numbers. The world could increase all of us, men, women, our income per capita by 20% just by allowing women to work as much as men. India could grow at 1.2% more than it's currently growing just by catching up with emerging market economies in terms of women's ability to work. India's female labor force participation could catch up at 50%, which is not high. Men are 80%. But just bringing women at 50%, which is the world average, will allow India to grow at 1.2% more and perhaps reach the 8% GDP growth that is needed for India to become a high-income country by 2047. So the numbers are clear. You can't achieve these ambitious goals if you're leaving out, half of your potential off the road. Now, it's not just about growth, it's also about well-being. When women work, children are better educated in the household. Family health improves. We all become healthier. Companies are better run, as we heard. So there are a lot of benefits to get out of female labor force participation. And just to close, there is also the quality of what we get out of the economy. When women work, growth is of a better quality. It's not just about the level of growth. It's about the inclusion of growth, inclusiveness of growth. It's also about how growth contributes to more macro stability. So if you want to push up growth without allowing women to work equally as men, then it means you're putting pressure on other resources, such as capital, such as productivity. And these are very expensive. And when you do that, you create inflation. So if you want growth that is not inflationary, you want to put emphasis on what you have already invested in, which is human beings, human capital, and education that is already lying in women.
Well, this is what central banks and central bankers should also be focused on, along with the government, given the high inflationary environment that we're currently living in. But Suresh Narayanan, I want to understand from you, because as Nainalal Kidwai pointed out, a company like yours has made strides. A company like yours has been able to cover the ground and cover the distance. How have you been able to do that? What has been the biggest obstacle, the biggest challenge?
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you for having me. And you have tempted me with all this poetry for me to quote Doha of Kabir. And Kabir said it in a different context, but it applies to women as well. He said, "Jati na poocho sadhu ki, pooch lijiye gyan, mol karo talwar ka, pada rahen do myan." He said this about the sadhus. Look at their knowledge, don't look at their caste. Forget the scabbard and look at the sword. I think in women's empowerment in the workspace we're talking today, I go back to this very unemotional argument of economic necessity. I mean, forget all this that Meri maa was a woman, my granddadi was a woman, all that is fine. The fact is that you're losing out big time in terms of the economic growth potential. At Nestle, we have always been friendly. We've always prided ourselves in being one of the best workplaces for women to be in. So I started with a simple vision that can I start with the board at 50%. We achieved it. And I think I'm very proud of it, because if I've done that with the board, today with the rest of the employees I'm at 25%. Not delighted about it, but at least some progress has been made. And what I'm most proud about is that we have a factory, our 9th factory in Sanand in Gujarat. 60% of that factory are women. I want to prove a point that in manufacturing, just as in financial services, in healthcare, in different segments, it's possible for women to succeed. And they're doing extremely well. In fact, the ramp up that we are having in that factory, in terms of productivity improvements, I mean, today they work on digital manufacturing operations. These are young women from Rajasthan, from Gujarat, from Madhya Pradesh. They come there with ITI degrees, they learn the skills of the game, and they do a magnificent job. So I think the most important lesson that I've learned is that you have to have the leadership conviction and the culture. I think we talked about this culture earlier. We have to have the leadership conviction and the convergence at middle management. Because what really happens is, as a leader, along with my team, I may be all for it. But somewhere in the line, the middle manager says, you know, why waste your time? Just get the guy and work. And I think that's where the transition is happening. But when you see that improvement happening, and the fact is, 50 to 60% of the trainees that we have got in technical and in marketing are women. So that's what the talent pool is offering you. And you must be either blind or a complete idiot to exclude it and say, look, I'm going to do whatever I've been doing 10 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. You're right in pointing that out, that it is about consciousness and it is about acting on the choices that are available. But Mr. Kant, you know, before I talk to you about the nation, let me talk to you about the civil services and the force that you have, of course, been involved with for the last so many decades. You know, 1951 is when we opened up the civil services to women, and I remember reading that the first woman who was brought into the IAS, the contract or the terms of employment said that her employment would be terminated if she got married. Of course, since then, the terms of employment have changed, but there's still far to go as far as even gender parity in the civil services are concerned. After all of these years, we've still never had a woman cabinet secretary, Mr. Kant. How far are we from that reality?
You know, but Shireen, if you look at the IAS examination, you know, in the previous years, all the toppers are all women. They're doing much better than men in the services. You know, they're outsmarting all the men. You know, all the top 10 position, you look at it, 6 to 7 of them are women, so they do much better. And, you know, I mean, whichever competitive examination you look at it, the women are doing much better than men in my own college and your college, St. Stephen's. When I graduated, it was an all-male bastion. You know, when I was graduating, it became a co-ed college. By the time my daughter went there, in her class, 82% of the students on merit were all girls. And the principal said that if you wanted to remain a co-ed college, you have to give 10% extra marks to boys. You know, so the girls are doing very well in all competitive examination, and I'm sure just a matter of time before the cabinet secretary, not merely the cabinet secretary, the defense secretary, the home secretary, the director IB will all be women.
And the G20 Sherpas. Well, let me ask you, this is a priority as far as India's agenda for the G20 is concerned. Women-led development is one of the strategic priorities that have been identified. Take me through the work that's going on at this point in time, and what is it that you hope to achieve at the end of this 1 year?
You know, so the important thing, Shireen, is firstly for India itself that, you know, the latest NFHS survey shows that there are 1,022 women to 1,000 men. Most people do not know that there are more women than men in India, and that you can't be a $5 trillion economy or a $10 trillion economy without women being a very major player in Indian economy. And similar is the case with the world. The world can't grow. If you want inclusive, resilient, sustainable growth, women-led development will have to be a very critical player. And therefore, when we were discussing the priorities in the midst of all this turbulence and upheaval, the Prime Minister said that women-led development has to be a key priority for India. And by doing this, what we are really saying is that you have to push for financial and digital inclusion. And a lot of this learning is coming from the India narrative, that when we started the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, that's opening close to about 500 million bank accounts between 2015 and 17, 55% of the bank accounts were opened by in India. Only 17% of the women had bank accounts in India. Today, 76% of the women have bank accounts in India. Look at the transformation from 17% to 76%. And the average money in those accounts are close to about 71,000 rupees. So women, bringing them into financial inclusion and the next phase of digital inclusion will be transformational to our mind. So if you look around the world, there are 4 billion people without a digital identity, 2 billion without a bank account. Many of them don't do fast payments. So if you want to transform the world, you have to ensure that financial and digital inclusion to the women is really the key. That's the only way the world will grow. But I can tell you, even in G20, there's a huge challenge. It's difficult to convince countries that you need women to lead the world. And it's a tough job which we are finding, but we are here to convince the world that India wants to do women-led development. We have about 1.90 crore people in Indian government. We have over about 10,000 women in armed forces, and we have so many women in the startup world and so on. And that's the way to really drive growth and prosperity for the world.
Settle down. Oh yeah, that's it. I've been through the storm, I've been through the rain. I'm still here standing, unshackled and chained. You better buckle up, cause I set my sights. But this bad boy ain't leaving without a fight. We're hot and dark, cause there ain't no fire without a spark.
MCX crude oil mini futures contract 10 barrels, available for trading from Friday, March 3rd. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com.
Had to do so much of drama. That's when my loan got approved.
Mummy na is bluffing. Mummy logged into Bob World and got a loan approved in 30 minutes.
Just upload your documents and get loan approval in 30 minutes. Bank of Baroda Home Loans. Loans without drama.
Play it your way. Sarah, this is your space.
Play it your way.
Today, risk management is very imperative. So what is required is regularly do the risk assessments. Very important, I think one of the best practice that companies can pick up is do external risk analysis. What's happening, the risk events that are happening in your industry, understand what is that, and if they happen to you, how you will mitigate them.
To nominate your organization for the India Risk Management Awards, visit the below link.
क्या हुआ रोहन, क्या सोच रहा है?
रिया, पहली सैलरी मिली है, तुम भी कुछ आइडिया दो, एक्सपेंसेस को कैसे प्लान किया जाए?
रोहन, एक्सपेंसेस के साथ साथ इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान करना भी जरूरी है।
देखो, सैलरी का कुछ हिस्सा घर के रेगुलर खर्चे के लिए और कुछ मैं अपने लिए भी तो सोच सकता हूँ ना, लेकिन इन्वेस्ट कहाँ करूँ?
सिंपल है, एनपीएस में।
एनपीएस में? रिया, अभी तो मैंने कमाना शुरू किया है, इतना आगे के लिए अभी से क्यों पैसे जोड़ूं?
वो देखो, एक एक करके ईंट जोड़ी जाती है, तब जाके एक घर तैयार होता है। वैसे ही अभी से पैसे जोड़कर हम भी अपना रिटायरमेंट सुखी बना सकते हैं।
बात में तो दम है।
एनपीएस कम लागत वाली फ्लेक्सिबल लॉन्ग टर्म योजना है, जिससे आपकी बचत ग्रो होकर पेंशन का लाभ देती है।
अच्छा, फिर तो मैं अभी अपना एनपीएस अकाउंट ओपन करता हूँ।
जो कल की सोचते हैं वो आज से ही थोड़ा-थोड़ा जोड़ते हैं।
पेंशन है तो टेंशन नहीं। एनपीएस में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है।
कैसे करते हैं ट्रेड? Try 5 पैसा. Powerful charts and research tool. One click trade is the new cool. Get access to live market data. Margin funding भी है रे बेटा. 5 पैसा app करो install. Trading made simple, simple for all. With 5 पैसा's wide range of products. यहाँ वहाँ चाहे हो जहाँ. Simply trade on the go. ऐसे करते हैं trade. सोच मत छोटे, install मार. Investment in securities market are subject to market risk. Read all related documents carefully before investing.
You guys all right?
या पर आपकी गाड़ी थोड़ी
कार एक्को से इंश्योर्ड है, सुपर फास्ट क्लेम सेटलमेंट हो जाता है। अरे मैं स्ट्रेस नहीं ले रहा हूँ, तू क्यों ले रहा है?
No more road rage.
So cool.
Acco, welcome change.
ये भारत का नंबर 1 सबसे भरोसेमंद फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज ब्रांड है। मुथूट फाइनेंस गोल्ड लोन, खोलिए खुशियों की तिजोरी।
चाचू, आज मैं पायलट हूँ because you believed in me. Thank you, चाचू।
I believe in one more thing.
क्या?
कि तू मुझे एक अच्छी अदरक वाली चाय पिलाएगी।
सच्चा दोस्त वही जो आपके बारे में सोचे। पर्सनल लोन्स फ्रॉम IDBI बैंक। बैंक ऐसा, दोस्त जैसा।
MCX Natural Gas Mini Futures Contract 250 MMBTU available for trading from the 14th of March. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com.
तेरा नाम गूंजेगा तो उठेगा एक तूफान, हिलेगी जमीन, मचेगा घमासान, देखेंगे फिर गेम तेरी।
ये है शुरुआत तेरी, अब हर जुबान पे होगी बात तेरी। देखिए पहला टाटा वुमेन्स प्रीमियर लीग 4 मार्च से जियो सिनेमा पर बिल्कुल फ्री।
Romal, you know, at Deloitte, I also know that this has been a priority to bring in parity as far as the workforce is concerned. But, you know, in the conversations that you're having with clients, etc., how are they approaching this as the smart thing to do, as the right business thing to do?
Thanks, Shireen. I think we are in the professional services world. What we really do is provide solutions. And over a period of time, what we've really seen is that we spoke about diversity of views, but diversity of the solution to help a client. And where we have teams of women participate as well, I think the ideation and the implementation is much better. The second part is we're all great at maybe giving good strategy, but the change management of making it actually happen is a significant challenge as well. The third, which we are working with corporates, is what we call as unconscious bias. We all have biases, and what we are bringing in is really bringing in technology, right, to identify what kind of biases are there in an individual, in an organization, all right, and using AI, ML and learning programs to say, how do we sort of achieve that? So these are a few things that as Deloitte, and I'm very happy, you know, when we talk about Deloitte globally, the chair is a woman.
Yeah.
Our largest business, consulting, that is a $30 billion business, is led by a woman. And we have something called the Deloitte 30 Club, which is India is included, where 33% of our leadership is all women. And our firms become much better, and you can see the cheer there, all the Deloitte women. It's because of them that we've become a better place to work.
Well, that I can vouch for. That I can certainly vouch for. But Lavanya, you know, that's a very important point that Romal brought up there, and this unconscious bias that he speaks of, and I think that permeates across different levels within the organization. As a leader today, as you make this transition of bringing more women into the workforce, of creating an equal opportunity workforce, what has been the big challenges that you've had to deal with, and how are you going about dealing with this issue of the unconscious bias as well? Because, in your own words, your family indulged you or tolerated your decision to come into Nalli.
Yes, so I think you've got to attack the problem from all sides, right? Like, there is no silver bullet. But the first thing, and I always believe, is that you can only manage that which you measure. So it starts from measuring it, right, at all levels. And just see the numbers for what they are, good, bad, or ugly, because only then can you make a conscious and intentional effort, and you can see whether that's tracking or not, right? Mentorship programs is one that I've already spoken about. Trainings, whether it's diversity, inclusivity training, unconscious bias training. I think there's also something to be said for women step out of the workforce at very predictable points, right? So they have these major life transitions, and it's almost like you can map it out, and you know that, okay, when that hits, they're likely to take a step back from career. The question then becomes, what is it that us in positions of authority and power and influence are doing to ensure that it's just a step back, but then we're bringing them back, right? Because when women come back into the workforce, they should have an encouraging environment, not an apathetic, not a hostile environment, but an environment which basically says, yes, this is part of the course. It's part of the course. We know that you're going to take a step back. We know that you're going to come back in. And by the way, this is a related statistic. So I spoke about the women that we have in our inventory and warehouse systems. Men versus women, and we've seen these stats, right? If you look at the attrition, even after, if you look at the attrition of women is very, very low, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we've noticed. And if you actually do the math as a business person and say the cost of training, the cost of hiring, the cost of losing someone, and then each time that they leave, you've got to find a replacement, versus a woman, those numbers would actually surprise you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And Auguste, speaking of the interventions at this point in time, you talked about some of the barriers that continue to exist across 150 countries, and we have seen many changes being brought in, legislative changes being brought in, mandatory quotas being brought in at the board level, and so on and so forth. But in your assessment for the region, what do you believe are the significant policy interventions required? Because as you pointed out, that while, as Mr. Kant said, there has been financial inclusion, it hasn't necessarily translated into higher participation in the workforce.
So thanks. Let me mention 3 policy areas. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. 3 policy areas. So first, creating an environment that makes it easier and even possible for women to work. And this around gender-based violence. If it is not safe for a girl or a woman to leave their home and go and work, you're reducing their incentive to work, even if they're highly educated, even if they have access to a bank account. They'd rather do it on the phone and not go to work.
Yeah.
If it is not safe for them to be in the workplace and work around men who are threatening their safety, they're not going to go to work easily. So creating an environment that makes it safer for women to work is very important. And this is not just for businesses to do. Governments have a role as well. There are, some cities are providing safe buses for women. Some cities are providing, safe metros for women. Government has a role to play also in regulation, in how gender-based violence is punished and actually reported. Government have a role to do on how the police react when a woman reports something, instead of just treating her as, somebody who is not credible. Take her seriously, and if you don't, then there is a punishment also for the police. So there are a number of things that the government can do in that space. The second area is to have what we call active labor market policies. Give incentive to the private sector to employ women. I mean, it's great to hear all these business leaders doing it on their own, and really chapeau to you. This is impressive, but it's not. You can't expect businesses to spend private money on something that is a public good. And I want to make a clear case here that female labor force participation is a public good. as I said earlier, is good for all of us. We will all become richer, we'll all become happier, we'll all become healthier, we'll become safer, we'll become better led by women. So it is a global public good that women participate more in the labor force. Therefore, you expect public money to be spent to make it feasible. So active labor market policies to tell, for example, businesses, if you have a woman worker who needs to go on maternity leave, well, the government can pay for some of the cost. So you don't have, so it's not more expensive for you to employ a woman than to employ a man. You make it equal, you level the playing field. The third policy area is to help women improve their skills and their value proposition on the labor market. So to provide them with additional training. It's impressive that women are doing so well in the exam. This is superb. But when they're on the job, how do they acquire soft skills? How do they make sure that they have entrepreneurial skills? If they don't like the employer because he's a man who is not treating them well and they want to create their own business, how do they acquire the skills? So ensuring that they have the capabilities to fend for themselves and become the kind of leader that we want in society is also important. So all these require public intervention, public money, but it's great that there be public-private partnership to do that.
You know, speaking of public-private partnership, as well as what Auguste just said, that we need to look at this as a public good. The areas that you believe the government can now focus on, for instance, some of the interventions that he just spoke of, can the government pitch in as far as maternity leave is concerned, especially for the smaller companies? Can the government help setting up good accessible care facilities which are accessible, especially again for the smaller organizations? Active labor force measures, what can the government do?
You know, so Shireen, I'm a great believer that all these policy changes World Bank is advocating is going to take generations. You need to do radical things to transform women-led development within a generation. I mean, by 2047, we should ensure that 51% of the wealth creation, the job creation, everything is women-led. And that can only happen if you do radical things financially. And to my mind, the first thing you need to do is to ensure that, women who earn money, you charge them 2% less tax than men. Second thing you need to do, so that means every woman who's earning, she's charged 2% less tax than any man. Second thing, for parents, parents in India pamper boys and not girls, and therefore parents who deposit money in the name of their daughters, they get 2% extra interest rates. You will see a radical you will do wealth transformation from men to women, and you will see women taking leadership position in India. What World Bank is advocating will take next 500 years, all this. You need radical transformation.
Auguste, we don't have 500 years. We need to move faster.
We have 5 minutes. But let me say the following. What we're recommending can be done tomorrow. It takes political will. And here I'm moving out of India. We're talking about the world. And when we look at numbers, the political will on the part of government, including in developed countries, is not there. So, society, again, we come back to the same thing, and maybe I'm getting too technical. When you're dealing with things that have positive externalities for society, it is not enough to say, I want businesses to do it, I want people to do it, I want families to do it. You want to use policy to provide incentive for them to do that, or for them to disincentivize. And that's what we're talking about. It doesn't take 500 years, it takes 5 minutes. Maybe it takes a parliamentary session to legislate it and then make it happen.
I've been through the storm, I've been through the rain. I'm still here standing, unshackled and chained. You better buckle up, cause I set my sights. But this bad boy fight. Work hard and dark, 'cause there ain't no fire without a spark.
MCX presents Crude Oil Mini Futures Contract 10 barrels, now available for trading. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com for more details.
अपना कर्तव्य निभाएं, समय पर अपना एडवांस टैक्स जमा कराएं। अपने सम्मान के लिए भी और राष्ट्र निर्माण के लिए भी आपके एडवांस टैक्स से देश का आर्थिक और सामाजिक विकास हो रहा है। महिलाएं अपने सपनों को नया आकाश दे रही हैं। कृषि टेक्नोलॉजी, अस्पताल, सड़कों और पुलों का निर्माण हमारी प्रगति को नई गति दे रहे हैं। आपका कर देश के विकास को सुनिश्चित करता है। अपना एडवांस टैक्स पे एज यू अर्न के आधार पर जमा कराएं। एडवांस टैक्स जमा कराने की आखिरी तारीख 15 मार्च 2023 है। कंपनी, कॉर्पोरेट या वे व्यक्ति जिनकी कर देयता TDS, TCS कटने के बाद 10,000 या उससे अधिक है, वो 15 मार्च 2023 तक अपने अग्रिम कर की किश्त अदा करें। प्रत्येक आय करदाता एक राष्ट्र निर्माता।
चाचू, आज मैं पायलट हूँ because you believed in me. Thank you, चाचू।
I believe in one more thing.
क्या?
कि तू मुझे एक अच्छी अदरक वाली चाय पिलाएगी।
सच्चा दोस्त वही जो आपके बारे में सोचे। पर्सनल लोन्स फ्रॉम IDBI बैंक। बैंक ऐसा, दोस्त जैसा।
हिमालय की गोद से लेकर केरला के बैकवाटर्स तक हमारे फैमिली ने इतना घूमा कि हम और घूमना चाहते हैं। थैंक्स टू माय क्लब महिंद्रा मेंबरशिप जो मुझे देता है 80 से भी ज्यादा रिसोर्ट्स और 2000 से भी ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंसेस का मजा। क्यों है ना क्लब महिंद्रा मेंबरशिप फैमिली के लिए एक मस्त चॉइस। क्लब महिंद्रा, वी कवर इंडिया, यू डिस्कवर इंडिया।
उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार के मार्गदर्शन में पिछले 6 वर्षों में राज्य ने एक सफर तय किया है। सफर समृद्धि का, करोड़ों सपनों के साकार होने का, सफर विकास और उन्नति का। इसी राह में सरकार का ऐतिहासिक कदम था ग्लोबल इन्वेस्टर समिट, जहां दुनिया भर के निवेशकों को झलक दिखी प्रगतिशील उत्तर प्रदेश की।
UP is also blessed with a highly motivated and result-oriented administration. India's business community at this summit would like to assure you that we have come to partner with you in your vision 2030. Together, we can and we will transform India's most populous state into one of India's most prosperous states, achieving your vision of a $1 trillion economy in the next 5 years.
उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार के निरंतर प्रयासों के चलते राज्य देश की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बन चुका है। साथ ही राज्य देश की GDP में 8% की भागीदारी निभा रहा है। साथ ही योगी सरकार की 20 से अधिक स्पेसिफिक सेक्टर पॉलिसीज और निवेश मित्र, सिंगल विंडो क्लियरेंस सिस्टम जैसी नीतियों के चलते राज्य ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में देश में दूसरे स्थान पर पहुंच गया है और दुनिया भर के निवेशकों के लिए निवेश का गंतव्य बन गया है।
As a native from UP, I'm very proud to see the progress which the state has made and all the new policies and ideas which the state brings in. I look forward to strengthening and my connect with the province and hopefully participating in the development of the state. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
ये योगी सरकार का दृढ़ संकल्प ही है जिसकी वजह से उत्तर प्रदेश को इन्वेस्टर समिट में 33.5 लाख करोड़ का निवेश प्राप्त हुआ है और प्रदेश नए आसमानों की ओर चल पड़ा है।
If you beat me at this game, I'll approve. Double the loan.
Challenge accepted. Had to do so much drama. That's when my loan got approved.
He's just bluffing, huh? He logged into Bob World and got a loan approved in 30 minutes. That too without any drama.
Just upload your documents and get loan approval in 30 minutes. Bank of Baroda Car Loans. Loans without drama.
MCX Crude Oil Mini Futures Contract 10 barrels, available for trading from Friday, March 3rd. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com.
Sarah, this is your space.
Play it your way.
For organizations, two very critical things. One is to have a more integrated
approach towards risk management. Not just look at risks in a function or in a silo, but have a more integrated approach towards collaboratively in your organization and in your ecosystem, what kind of risks can you face. And the second would be to look at key indicators, or rather data points or external indicators or signals which can help you understand when a risk can play out.
To nominate your organization for the India Risk Management Awards, visit the below link.
Invest once and enjoy guaranteed maturity with life cover with LIC's Dhan Varsha, a single premium plan for your family's security and prosperity.
MCX Natural Gas Mini Futures Contract 250 MMBTU, available for trading from the 14th of March. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com.
क्या हुआ रोहन, क्या सोच रहा है?
रिया, पहली सैलरी मिली है, तुम भी कुछ आइडिया दो, एक्सपेंसेस को कैसे प्लान किया जाए?
रोहन, एक्सपेंसेस के साथ साथ इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान करना भी जरूरी है।
देखो, सैलरी का कुछ हिस्सा घर के रेगुलर खर्चे के लिए और कुछ मैं अपने लिए भी तो सोच सकता हूँ ना, लेकिन इन्वेस्ट कहाँ करूँ?
सिंपल है, एनपीएस में।
एनपीएस में? रिया, अभी तो मैंने कमाना शुरू किया है, इतना आगे के लिए अभी से क्यों पैसे जोड़ूं?
वो देखो, एक एक करके ईंट जोड़ी जाती है, तब जाके एक घर तैयार होता है। वैसे ही अभी से पैसे जोड़कर हम भी अपना रिटायरमेंट सुखी बना सकते हैं।
बात में तो दम है।
एनपीएस कम लागत वाली फ्लेक्सिबल लॉन्ग टर्म योजना है, जिससे आपकी बचत ग्रो होकर पेंशन का लाभ देती है।
अच्छा, फिर तो मैं अभी अपना एनपीएस अकाउंट ओपन करता हूँ।
जो कल की सोचते हैं वो आज से ही थोड़ा थोड़ा जोड़ते हैं।
पेंशन है तो टेंशन नहीं। एनपीएस में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है।
जैसे एक सच्चा दोस्त हमेशा आसपास होता है, ठीक उसी सच्चे दोस्त की तरह मुथूट फाइनेंस भी हमेशा आपके आसपास ही है। तो अपनी सुविधा अनुसार हमें अपने घर बुलाइए और आराम से गोल्ड लोन पाइए। मुथूट फाइनेंस गोल्ड लोन, खोलिए खुशियों की तिजोरी। आज ही कॉल कीजिए 1-800-313-1212।
ए लड़की, तेरा नाम क्या है? पूछने वाले पूछे तो बता तेरी पहचान क्या है। तेरा नाम गूंजेगा तो उठेगा एक तूफान, हिलेगी जमीन, मचेगा घमासान। तेरा नाम गूंजेगा जब हर गली हर मकान में फैलेंगी तेरी बातें, हर नुक्कड़ हर दुकान में। पीठ पे सजाए घूमेंगे तेरा नाम, देखेंगे फिर गेम तेरी छोड़-छाड़ के काम सब। पीठ पे सजाए घूमेंगे तेरा नाम, देखेंगे फिर गेम तेरी।
यह है शुरुआत तेरी, अब हर जुबान पे होगी बात तेरी। देखिए पहला टाटा वुमेन्स प्रीमियर लीग 4 मार्च से जियो सिनेमा पर बिल्कुल फ्री।
Hitendra Dave, I'm going to ask all of you to play in the middle between the World Bank and Amitabh Kant. So how can we make radical change happen?
I think a few things. One is tone from the top. I think even you heard the Admiral say a decision has been taken, right? So I think that's the same thing. I think organizations, families, governments, societies have to stop debating this point. A decision has been taken. I can speak for the organization that I work for. A decision has been taken. We want to be a firm which has an affirmative bias towards our women executives. So that is one. And that tone should constantly be repeated in meetings, in media interviews, in sponsorship of causes that further this. I think that's one. And it will be a slow trickle, right? To the point I think was made that perhaps it's easier at the top than at the middle, because at the middle there is fight for space, right? So that's one. Second is system of incentives. So I think you look at the whole supply chain, right? How do you get the women in? How do you retain them? How do you skill them? How do you make sure that they feel that there is a great place they can come back to after 6 months or 9 months or 1 year? All the great policies that can be there, and at HSBC that's where it is. So if anybody in the business of recruiting people is there, we do actually incentivize us, our partner firms, to actually send more CVs of women than of men. And then we have dedicated, I'm just talking about ourselves, but I'm sure every organization has, dedicated training programs, mentoring programs, coaching programs, especially for women in that age group where there's a lot of drop-off. And you make them feel that you have a very, very good future, you have a financially strong future. Inevitably, you end up becoming a better mom because you're financially more secure, and then things of that nature. And then I think accelerated leadership programs, making sure ratios are seen. I sadly, for someone who's talking so much, I fail my own measures on the number of women we should have in our senior leadership. So that's also an honest admission. But I think we are all committed to doing it. And I think programs such as this, agenda such as this, passionate leaders such as Mr. Kant will ensure that we get there. And I also I think this movement is on now. I think girls born in this century have a far better opportunity than, let's say, born 25 years prior to that. And I think girls being born today will definitely have better than the ones born in 2000. So the journey is afoot. I think it's great to see the level of impatience in getting it there. And then it's great to have leaders like you who are pushing this cause quite a bit. So I think we can all be very optimistic that when we meet progressively, we will all have less and less areas to work.
Optimistic but not complacent. We cannot put our foot off the pedal. Romal, so the message that you want to send out.
I think one important thing, and a lot of people mentioned, one is it's the right thing to do for business, and Mr. Kant mentioned about interest rates, right? We actually have in Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities where we help clients give access to credit, 1% lesser for women, they still make more money than the men. So it actually makes business sense, right, first. Second, as corporates and as all of that, the difference between sponsorship and mentorship. Mentorship is good guidance, coaching. Sponsorship is helping you cross the line. I think that is also extremely important. And one of the things that, we have a program which we always say is, I have your back. The Ally program to actually have your back is very, because when I started my career, there were 3 women who actually helped me achieve what I've become today. They always gave me the confidence that don't worry, we have your back. And I think that's also important to have that.
And the women helped you get to the CEO's position, Romal. So
Absolutely.
cheers to the women. Suresh, Narayanan, what the priorities that you're focusing on and the message that you want to send out?
Look, I'm by nature a pragmatist, and I like to do things in sure-footed, bite-sized ways, rather than trying to take leaps of imagination. So there are 3 things for me that is extremely important. Number 1 is, I think it's been talked about, inspiration and leadership. It has to transcend me, and it has to transcend the middle management of the organization through demonstrable actions. The second piece that we're talking about is creating infrastructure, whether it's creches, whether it, I've got a fourth of my workforce who are involved in sales. Creating simple toilet facilities at distributor points, access to better hotels is an important. A woman comes back from maternity leave, she's allowed in my company to travel along with her child and along with her help at the cost of the company. Because these are the things you need to put your feet on the ground. So do this in a consistent manner. And 3, stay the course for the long term. I think what's important is, I always believe that if I can make a shift in my organization, society around me will notice it. And today I see it, because we're talking about further investments. And my own team comes up and says, I hope we are doing the same 50-60% women in the new investments that we do. And the answer is yes. So they see it themselves. So pragmatic steps, creating the infrastructure and the policies, and staying the course for a long period of time. I think these are the 3 things that I would put down.
Very well said, Mr. Narayanan. And Lavanya, I'm going to give you the final word as we close out this panel on what you believe is the message that you want to send out and the single biggest priority for you.
So the single biggest priority, I think, is just one for me, and it's just making sure that there's women visible at every level. And I do believe that there is something to be said for the symbolism. There's something to be said for the newer generation who are coming in, both men and women, coming into a female-dominant workforce and seeing that as perfectly normal. And I think that's going to fundamentally change mindsets by just the sheer visibility of it, to see women at every level in leadership positions, in peer positions, and just going about their everyday life like it's perfectly normal, because it absolutely is.
It absolutely is normal, and we hope that we move towards that normalcy across workplaces, across society. Mr. Kant, Hitendra, Romal, Suresh, Narayanan, Lavanya and Auguste, many, many thanks. We hope that we are able to achieve the goals and the outcomes that we've discussed here. It will take collective action. It will take courage, political and corporate, but you know, as you pointed out, it means staying consistent. It means that we need to continue to reinforce the message. Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to our leaders who joined us here this evening.
I am fearless, I'm driven, I'm a change maker. They think they can stop me, but can you stop the river? Every time you shut a door, I will find me a window. I'm the fire you can't douse, I'm the girl in the mirror. Every time you shut a door, I will find me a window. I'm the fire you can't douse, I'm the girl in the mirror. This is my time to shine, taking back all that's mine. This is my time to shine, taking back